Hey there, everybody. It's Alex here from VG247.com, and I'm here with Sherif to talk once again. We're back to talk about Battlefield 2042. Almost said 2142 there, which would be the wrong game unless we've gone back in time 15 years. But yeah, so you saw, Sherif, a little bit more of the game. Obviously, by the time that this goes out to the people, EA Play will have happened, and they too will have seen a bit more. But do you want to tell me about what you saw?
Yeah, so if you remember when we first talked to you about Battlefield 2042, DICE said that the game is split into 3 distinct experiences. Obviously, at the reveal event and then the gameplay, they showed All-Out Warfare, which is Conquest and Breakthrough. Standard Battlefield, really. And then they said there are 2 more things. Hazard Zone, which is definitely not BR. That's still being shown sometime in the next couple of months. But then the second mode, which is made by Ripple Effect Studios, which previously, of course, DICE LA, is the one that was the focus of this event. And there have been some leaks and stuff coming out since the game reveal, and some of that information is correct, but like it's much bigger than people reading that stuff would imagine it is. So what it is, it's first of all, it's called Battlefield Portal, and has nothing to do with the Valve portal, although that would be cool. What it is basically is it's 2 things. It's modding tools, like a series of knobs and dials and things you can customize that go way beyond the custom game settings that we've had in some of the previous Battlefield games, along with remasters of select content from Battlefield 1942, Bad Company 2, and Battlefield 3. So essentially what they brought is that they basically created a sandbox with some of that content alongside the content in 2042, and then gave you a bunch of tools to mess around and create dumb shit.
So you can basically mix and match the 4 elements from those 4 games. So that's 1942,
Bad Company
Battlefield
2.
3, you said?
Yes.
And Bad Company 2.
Yes.
Well, Bad Company fans are going to be happy, right?
Yeah. So they have 2 maps from each of those games. They have El Alamein and Battle of the Bulge from 1942. They
maps.
have yes, they've really chosen some good representation of those games. They have Caspian Border and North Shore Canals from BF3.
Those are definitely the 2 maps from those games, yeah.
And of course, from Bad Company 2, they have Arica Harbor. Everyone remembers Arica Harbor and Valparaiso. And they have, like, those maps have been remastered with the current version of Frostbite. You'll be playing with the movement and the mechanics of 2042 as far as like the core of the game, but everything else on top of that is what existed in those games. So
the weapons,
the attachments, all the different kit and soldier limitations of the past. You remember the snipers, medics carried LMGs in Bad Company 2. All that stuff is there. Their player models are there. They've redone the models of everything, including the weapons and the attachments. So you have all this madness, essentially. You can basically, what they do when Portal launches, which will be available at the game launch at 2042 launch, when that game, DICE and Ripple Effect will have created a bunch of experiences for you to just try out and see what this thing is. And then you will have a community tab where you would basically browse. Like, think of it as Halo Forge. It's not as featured as Halo Forge, and I'll get to that in a moment. They, for some reason, they really avoided talking and kind of referencing Forge, and maybe that's something to do with business, whatever. But the point is, at launch, you'll find a couple of decent kind of vanilla experiences. One of them is going to be Classic Rush on Arica Harbor, Classic Rush on Valparaiso, with the same teams, with the same kits, with the same everything, just running on like Battlefield innards, essentially 2042 innards. And then obviously, if you give it time, the examples that they've shown us, we'll talk to this in a bit. But what do you think of this, Alex?
Well, first of all, I love the idea. I loved the idea when it sort of leaked, and they were sort of hinting at what it was before, right? And I was into it. I was into the concept of, right, we're going to mash up the Battlefield games. I think the thing I'm curious about is how far you can go with these tools and these settings. So it's like, can you play a BF3 map, which is very BF3, with all the 1942 stuff, but then can you play a BF3 map with 1942 guns but BF3 vehicles and all that sort of. I want to know how much you can mash stuff together. And obviously, the other question I have, which I'm sure they're not talking about right now, but maybe I'm sure it was asked during the thing that you watched, is this an expanding thing where in time? So my favorite Battlefield is BF2, right? So I'd love to see some BF2 maps and weapons and all that sort of stuff. Although, once you get to that point, to be fair, the overlap between BF2 and BF3 is pretty big because it's just modern weapons. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, they were pretty coy about like what's going to happen to this post-launch. They were open to the idea of maps from those games coming over, and maybe some other games. But I tried to pin them down in the interview that I had with Justin Weep, who's the creative director, and really couldn't. It was more like, oh, well, listen to the fans. We'll do what they want us to do, but it wasn't really like a concrete type experience. To answer your question about having 1942 soldiers or vehicles of BF3 on a Bad Company 2 map, yes, you can. You're only limited to one era per team, but you can absolutely have Germans from 1942 carrying era appropriate weapons with their soldier kits, with their weapon limitations, everything that existed there, with the Bad Company 2 US factions. And then both of those can just clash, and you could just have no limitations. You could say, okay, they're both going to have the mechanics of modern Battlefield. Or you could go in and tweak and say, okay, for the US Bad Company 2 team, you're not going to be able to go prone because Bad Company 2 did not have prone, so you're not going to be able to go prone. You just basically turn on a dial and say, okay, no prone for this team. And then for the 1942 team, you could say, okay, only iron sights, because World War II was fought mostly with iron sights, only iron sights. And then you just go and then create whatever madness that you have in mind. You could even limit like the team sizes. You could say, have like a squad of 4 with high-tech weaponry and like lethal damage. You can adjust the damage per team, and then a squad of like technically inferior faction, like 1942 whatever, but they have bigger numbers, but inferior weapons essentially, which is like you make a game of like, I don't know, like a PvE thing, but with real players.
It's like 3 World War II tanks versus 1 modern
exactly.
tank.
Like some of the examples, like they even pitted which is like a real deep cut, which is I think it's called the EOD bot from BF3, which is like the little engineer bot that was kind of useless. It was funny in the trailer. But they pitted that thing against the Ranger, who's the robot dog from 2042, and then against another tank from like a different game. It was like some really dumb. It's like, okay, what if 10 of these against one tank? Who would win? It's like stuff like this. They're like, yeah, this is really where they're going for. I have confirmed that they will not let you modify or create maps, which is really kind of kills the Forge comparison. They have the maps the classic maps that they brought have been, like I said, remastered. They definitely look like those maps. They tried to keep to the sort of aesthetic sensibilities of that time, but they have been expanded and upgraded in so many different ways. For example, the 1942 maps from the Refractor era of Battlefield, destruction did not exist at the time. Now destruction does. So when these maps are now here, they support destruction. So that's a great thing. And you can try to imagine like the draw distance in the Refractor era games were not great. That's been fixed. You try to imagine like all the sort of problem, the excessive sand and Bad Company 2 maps everywhere. That stuff is not there now. Stuff like this that you're like, okay, excuse me. This has been modernized and expanded because now they need to account for 128 players potentially playing on Arica Harbor.
Oh wow! So they are all right, because I assume they would maybe have, the original or close to probably be 64, but they're all 128.
They've been like there are versions that support that. There's a version of Arica Harbor that has low tide that basically reveals more landmass around the area that we remember, which is balanced for the bigger game modes. But if you want to do 24 player rush, which is as it was on like Verb Ratio and Arica Harbor, you can do that. In fact, as I was saying earlier, you'll find this playlist on the curated list once you get hit, Portal, when you get the game. You'll find all the classic, not a lot of funny business kind of vanilla stuff for you to play.
I feel like so this is all the Battlefield 5 stuff is in Battlefield 5. All the Battlefield 2042 stuff is in there as well, right?
Yes,
So everything
including
from that game.
content that will come post launch. So specialists exist. All the
Uh,
weapons from 20. You can turn them off. You can do whatever you want. But like
oh
you have
yeah.
essentially the 7 maps in the main game and those 6 maps and like 30, 40 weapons from those games, and then however many weapons in the new game. 30, 40 vehicles from those games, and however many
See,
vehicles.
to me, this feels like their Warzone in its way. Their thing that they can
Mm,
potentially carry from game to game, adding stuff with each new battlefield, and then you still got your whatever the multiplayer will be in the next battlefield will be whatever that will be,
yeah,
but they can keep expanding and growing on this. And like this already sounds like an awesome amount of content, but straight away, and I think this is the sign of a good feature, right? It's not the sign of a feature that's lacking in content. When I say I hear all this and my mind begins to run away with thoughts of I want a Gulf of Old Man remake, right? Like
yeah,
I want some 2142 stuff, obviously, because that is the next game on from this, right?
yeah.
I want some of those. That's what I want. I want like a 2142 mech
Oh man.
against like 5 World War II tanks. Or World War One stuff, right? Bring Battlefield One into it. I think those are the two that I'd like to see the most. I'd like to see Battlefield One and 2142 added, because they are the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's
Uh,
already awesome that we've got from 1945, well, from 1939, I guess, to
2042.
2042 represented in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of love that you could definitely see went into this.
Mm.
It's definitely not just a thing. The impression I got is that it was not just a thing to pad out the game and put like a thing on the back of the box. So like, oh, have 6 more maps. Like, no, the 6 maps are sort of like a minuscule thing of this bigger project. I will also add that you can use AI for any of these things, either to test them out if you want to test like a specific config that you created, uh, or to use them as backfill, just like they do in normal multiplayer 2042. Or if you want to have like a PVE thing, you can start a server with you and a couple of buddies, and that server is going to live on the cloud as long as someone is playing. Uh, it's going to exist there. Once you all go to bed and nobody's playing, it's going to spin down and then spin back up when you want it. Uh, I've confirmed that they will not be charging for like any server rental stuff like they did in the
Oh,
past.
nice.
So like everything, they basically have like a very flexible cloud space that they can expand uh, uh, to support this kind of stuff. Yeah, you won't be able to bring what you want. I wish there was a map editor that you could bring the 2142 stuff into it. But the good news is that there is a logic editor, which is basically visual scripting, that you
Mhm.
can really go down and customize stuff. Like some of the stuff that they showed kind of went a little over my head. I don't have a programming background, but some of the stuff
Mhm.
they showed, like for example, the settings that anybody can turn on. These are like knobs and dials. Like you see them, you understand what he does. Like on off. Move a slider to the right, move a slider to the left. But then if you want to go beyond that and say, okay, write a script that says you'll get health on kill. Like that's not an option. None of these games had that option, but you can write a script that says, okay, when this person does this, this is going to happen. Or like have a gun game that exists with like different variables without the traditional gun games. Like, oh, you get a kill, you get an next weapon, you get a kill. Okay, maybe it's the team score. Maybe the whole team changes weapons. Maybe you're
Team
changing.
gun game.
It's like I like stuff like that. You're like, okay, beyond what you can turn on in the basic, easy to understand settings. And I can't wait to see like some of the stuff that people create. It's really truly fascinating that they're giving people mod tools in 2021.
Quick question: Is destruction on the table in that? Can you make destruction, more explosive in the sense of stuff falls down quicker? Can you shut it off entirely? So, say you wanted to create a 1943 experience where there wasn't destruction, is that something you can toggle?
I did not ask about that. No, they did not touch on destruction at all. I imagine it will be because if you remember, some of the Battlefield games or actually in the same Battlefield game, some maps don't have destruction as much, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
having turned off completely for some cases. So I imagine if they can do it, maybe we can. But
Mhm.
that's just a hunch. I have actually no idea. Uh, uh, but yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
I'm just thinking of maps now. I'm just thinking of like, there was that Great Wall map, right, in BF2.
The Great
Uh,
War Map.
Great Wall.
Whoa! Oh,
Yeah. Um, there's I've got a lot of time for BF2. I do love BF2, but like, yeah, I'm just, my mind is racing with all the possibilities of it, and I feel like this has to have come from them going, what can we do to be our Warzone Fortnite, something that can live and grow in those content ways that those games do, which the traditional Battlefield multiplayer just can't. Um, and I think it's really exciting. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's part of it for sure. I still want to know what the other mode is. Maybe that's going to be the free to play, their
yeah,
answer
yeah.
to Warzone, I guess. Uh,
So
uh,
the BF5, I don't know why I keep calling it BF5. Probably because I want to delete the actual
you
BF5
know
from my
what?
brain.
When they showed the trailer that they ran had some World War II stuff, and I was like, "Oh, you're bringing BF5 in this? The game just came out. Like, why are you bringing BF5 into this mode?" And it's like, "Oh, it's 1942. Oh, but they look as good as BF5 because they've been remastered." And it's like, it's like a World War II soldier
I
running.
just I think I just want to delete BF5 from my brain because I really did not like it. But no, so the 2042 stuff. Um, can you still, in a 2042 map in this mode? Can you still have the crazy sandstorm, hurricane, tornado stuff? Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the variables. You can use these variables as part of the process of bringing the classic maps into the new Frostbite. They've basically tuned them to support the new tech that they have. So the physics
Oh, so
simulation.
can you have weather effects in the
Yes,
other maps?
yes.
Fuck,
Like I said, it's
that's amazing.
yeah, I wish you're seeing Alex's face right now.
Holy crap, that's sick. That is sick because I just, ripping a tornado through a 1943 map. Yo, that is, and that means as they add more maps and presumably more weather effects come down the line, that will add to the toolbox.
Everything that gets added to 2042 will become part of that sandbox. They said, like I was saying earlier, maybe they will add stuff from other games or the games that are already included. Who knows? I think they probably should do the rest of Bad Company 2 and call it. But yeah, I'm just imagining, like, as you were saying earlier about like BR, the BF 2042 maps are pretty massive. So if you imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and they already support 128 players by default. So if you were to do like maybe an advanced visual scripting thing where players are spawning
You
at
only
like
get one life.
you only get one life, like you could imagine someone
Yeah.
getting like the biggest map in 2042 and doing like a makeshift BR. Was maybe, I don't know, like I don't know if you can drop weapons or stuff. I haven't seen any of that stuff, but you could try to do it. You could try to kind of make something. They've mostly just focused on like
Man.
some dumb stuff of like, okay, like a team of BF3 medics running with defebs against a team of like Germans with knives. It's like stuff like this, or like a map that supports 24 players with like 128 players, then it go. Stuff like this. It's like dumb. But yeah, there's
Oh,
definitely.
I'm here for it. This is the bit of this game. I was excited for this game anyway, but this is the bit of this game that I can see myself playing a lot of. And hopefully, did they talk much about the visual scripting and stuff as it relates to console? Because obviously, it's a lot easier to jump in and mess about with that stuff on a
Uh,
keyboard.
Good question. That stuff is going to be available only in basically a web browser. So you're going to hit
Right.
a
Okay.
URL and then do it from
You
there.
would go on your computer, edit it, and then go back to your Xbox potentially
That's
to
right.
test it.
You
Right.
basically you can either share the URL physically and give it to someone, at which point they
Mm.
have access to what you do and they can edit your stuff, or you could just save it as an experience, get a share code, give it to somebody else. They can go in and maybe look at it and see how you did something or whatever. And then there's like something like a way to publish essentially,
Mm.
which then gets this thing on a server and then gets it tagged so that people can search for it, and then like there's a whole kind of discovery and sharing side to this. That's
That
also
sounds
neat.
as elegant as it can be, right? Like on console. That sounds fair.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to do that stuff on console. Just have that stuff, and everybody knows how to use a mouse and keyboard. Just let them do that there,
Yeah.
and then you don't have to worry about memory or stuff like that.
Yeah. That sounds absolutely rad. I don't know what to say. I'm pumped for that. That is yeah. I just hope it grows over time. That's the thing. I want it to grow to be, you know, it's that thing of like, it's a weird comparison, but it's that Smash Brothers excitement of not actually of the crossover, but of how Smash Ultimate was, here's everything. And here's everything you remember from all the way across this series. I hope this sort of goes down that path, and in 2 years, there's a couple of maps from every game, and factions from every game, and weapons and stuff. That'd be great. And hey, it's a bone for the Bad Company people, right?
Yes. Like on day one of, that's a crazy thing to even say, but like on day one of 2042, you'll be able to like go in a server and play Valparaiso or Arica Harbor Rush, which is fucking crazy to think about. It's like, okay, it's not quite the remake that you wanted, but
and hey, it's those maps on PC.
Yes, they're just going to be impressive, just impressive stuff. And yeah,
well, that sounds sick. I'm glad we had this conversation. So you're writing a couple of things on the site, right, that people can go and check out?
Yeah, I pulled out a couple of interesting headlines from this. There's also an interview that we had with Justin that you could read that will go live once EA Play wraps up.
Same time as this video, basically. Yeah. So is there anything else you want people to know?
No, just keep it locked here, and we'll hopefully come back to you when we know what the third mode is.
Yes, we'll definitely do some stuff, and we'll play some multiplayer if they give us access to the beta and stuff like that. So definitely stick around here, ring the bell, give us a like, give us a subscribe. I know it sounds rote, but it does actually help. And yeah, there's going to be some great write-ups from Sherif on VG247.com. So definitely hit up the site to read that stuff. So yeah, cheers for hanging out, Sherif.
Thank you.
Till next time, everyone. See ya.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. It's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. Take a look at our other videos if you like. Also, check out VG247.com for around the clock gaming news and updates.